You thought wealth always announced itself with a Ferrari, a Rolex, or a designer suit. I did too, until months working inside a luxury office tower taught me something stranger. The loudest millionaire talked about money every day. The richest man I ever met drove an old Subaru and wore a faded hoodie. If he was truly wealthy, why did he work so hard to look ordinary? I thought it was humility until I saw how they actually spent their money. If you're curious about how money really works behind the scenes, consider subscribing. We explore the psychology behind wealth, not just the numbers. For 3 years, I worked as a maintenance technician in one of the most expensive apartment towers in the city. Every week, I crossed paths with startup founders rushing to board flights, hedge fund partners returning from meetings, retired executives who seemed to have nowhere they needed to be, and influencers filming their lives in the lobby before breakfast. At first, I thought I knew exactly who the richest people were. It was always the ones changing luxury cars every few months, showing off a new watch, or live streaming another expensive purchase. But the longer I stayed, the harder that story became to believe. The residents with the largest investment portfolios dressed like high school teachers, drove aging SUVs, carried reusable coffee mugs, and walked through the building without anyone giving them a second glance. Nothing about them looked impressive until you learned what they actually owned. That's when the contradiction began. The more people I met, the less wealth looked like wealth. After a while, I stopped paying attention to what people wore and started paying attention to what their money was actually doing. That was the real difference. Most people with ordinary incomes seem to spend money trying to improve how life looked from the outside. A newer phone meant they were keeping up. A bigger SUV meant they were moving forward. A luxury vacation proved the long hours had finally paid off. Every purchase told a story they hoped other people would believe. Sometimes, they were trying just as hard to convince themselves. The wealthiest residents approached money almost the opposite way. They rarely talked about the next thing they wanted to buy. Instead, they talked about buying back time. They hired someone to handle chores they disliked so they could spend another afternoon with family. They paid off debts that created stress instead of adding new monthly payments. They invested in businesses, index funds, and income-producing assets that quietly worked while they slept. Their goal wasn't to look successful. Their goal was to make tomorrow a little easier than today. Eventually, I realized I wasn't looking at two different spending habits. I was looking at two different philosophies. I started calling it cash flow psychology. One person upgrades to the newest iPhone the week it launches. Another automatically invests the same amount into an ETF every month. One person trades in a perfectly reliable SUV for a more expensive model. Another sends an extra payment toward a high-interest loan, knowing every dollar of interest avoided becomes future freedom. One person fills social media with vacation photos. Another quietly hires help to reclaim hours they can spend learning, resting, or building another source of income. From the outside, one life appears richer. But beneath the surface, only one is creating more options for the future. So I began asking myself a different question. Who is actually becoming wealthier? Maybe this wasn't really about stealth wealth at all. Maybe it was something deeper. Stealth cash flow. That's when I realized they weren't optimizing appearances. They were optimizing something far more valuable. One evening, after another long shift, I opened my banking app without really expecting anything different. My paycheck had already arrived. For a brief moment, the balance looked reassuring. Then the money started disappearing before I even touched it. Rent, insurance, groceries, gas, streaming subscriptions I'd barely used all month. A few automatic payments I had forgotten were even scheduled. By the time I finished scrolling, the balance had fallen from $1,180 to just under $190. The number wasn't shocking anymore. What shocked me was how normal it had become. Maybe you've had that moment too. You promise yourself you'll finally build an emergency fund, but an unexpected bill wipes out your progress.
You plan to pay down your credit card, then convince yourself one more purchase won't matter. Your income increases, but somehow so do your monthly expenses. Without realizing it, every raise quietly becomes permission to spend a little more. That's lifestyle inflation. It feels like progress, but your financial freedom never actually moves. That's when I realized the real problem wasn't that wealthy people dressed simply. Their wardrobe had nothing to do with my bank account. The problem was much closer to home. I had been using my cash flow to maintain a version of my life instead of building a stronger financial system underneath it. Every dollar can either protect your future or decorate your present. It can strengthen an emergency fund, reduce high-interest debt, increase your savings rate, or begin buying assets that generate future income. Or it can disappear into another payment that makes next month look exactly like this one. Most people don't get trapped because they earn too little. They get trapped because their cash flow is working for appearances instead of freedom. That's the real cash flow trap. Maybe the biggest luxury isn't owning expensive things. Maybe it's never worrying about next month's bills. The longer I observed people with significant wealth, the more I realized they weren't playing the same game as everyone else. Most conversations about money revolve around what people buy. But people who build wealth tend to think about what every dollar continues to do after they spend it. They don't obsess over luxury nearly as much as they obsess over efficiency. They ask different questions. Can this reduce taxes legally? What's the opportunity cost of tying money up here? Will this improve my cash flow? How much risk am I taking? Is my portfolio properly diversified? Will compound growth quietly make today's decision more valuable 10 years from now? Those questions rarely create exciting social media posts, but they quietly shape financial lives. That's why social media can be so misleading. The platforms reward visibility. The more attention you attract, the more valuable you appear. Expensive vacations, designer brands, luxury apartments, and exotic cars generate clicks because they are easy to recognize. Ownership works differently. The market doesn't reward visibility. It rewards assets that keep producing value whether anyone notices them or not. Imagine two people. One has 2 million followers who celebrate every purchase. Another owns $2 million worth of income-producing assets that quietly generate cash flow every month. Which person has more freedom? The answer isn't always the one with a larger audience. That also explains why many genuinely wealthy people seem surprisingly ordinary. They're not pretending to be poor. They're protecting something far more valuable than status. Looking obviously wealthy can increase prices during negotiations. It can attract unwanted attention. It can invite assumptions, expectations, and sometimes even personal security risks. Remaining ordinary preserves leverage. It protects privacy. It allows them to move through life without constantly announcing the size of their balance sheet. Eventually, I realized there are two completely different kinds of status. The first depends on other people seeing your success. It's measured by compliments, likes, admiration, and recognition. The second exists even if nobody ever notices. It's the confidence that your bills are covered. Your investments continue growing, your emergency fund can absorb surprises, and your future isn't dependent on the next paycheck. One form of status is highly visible. The other is almost invisible.
Maybe that's why the idea of stealth wealth only tells part of the story. The deeper principle is something I think of as the economics of invisibility. Financial strength often becomes more powerful as it becomes less obvious. Real wealth doesn't always announce itself because its purpose isn't to impress strangers. Its purpose is to create options. Once I understood that, I stopped asking how rich people looked and started asking what my money was actually doing. Nothing about my life changed overnight. I didn't sell my car. I didn't throw away my clothes. I didn't suddenly start living like the people I'd been observing. Instead, I changed something much less visible. I started tracking my cash flow every month instead of wondering where my paycheck had gone. I built a small emergency fund before buying things I didn't truly need. I increased my savings rate whenever my income grew, even if it was only by a few percentage points. I began investing consistently in broad market ETFs rather than waiting for the perfect moment. I focused on paying off high-interest debt before chasing the next upgrade, and I became much more careful about purchases driven by emotion instead of purpose. None of these decisions looked impressive from the outside. No one complimented me for having a healthier balance sheet. There was nothing exciting enough to post online. But slowly, the numbers began changing in ways that actually mattered. Each month, I felt a little less dependent on my next paycheck and a little more confident about the future. This is just an illustrative example to help you understand the power of long-term financial habits and compounding. Your actual results will depend on your income, expenses, investment returns, and the financial decisions you make over time. I also realized something that sounds obvious now, but took me years to understand. Nobody becomes wealthier simply by wearing old clothes or driving an older car. Those things, by themselves, create no value. What builds wealth is consistently choosing assets over appearances, cash flow over consumption, and long-term ownership over short-term validation. The biggest shift wasn't in my wardrobe. It was in what I expected every dollar to do. In the end, I don't think there are just rich people and poor people. I think there are two different kinds of freedom. One is designed to be seen. It grows through attention, admiration, and followers. The other exists quietly, built on cash flow, ownership, and assets that keep working long after you're done for the day. The question isn't why rich people sometimes look poor. The real question is, are your financial decisions buying attention or buying freedom? If this perspective changed how you think about money, leave a comment with the one financial habit you're rethinking today. And subscribe for more stories that explain how money really works beyond what social media shows you.